If you want to grow your business and focus on what you're really good at, eventually you're going to have to start delegating some of the work to other people. That might start out as subcontractors or eventually full-time hires. But even if you want to stay as a freelancer and work alone, eventually you have to work with other people. So in this video, I want to share my strategies and how I do my hiring when I'm working with other subcontractors. Hi everybody, what's up? So for the last few weeks, I've been spending actually a very significant time interviewing and hiring subcontractors. There's a lot of projects that I'm working on right now. Specifically, I'm building a new course, which will be launched in September about web design. And so I'm hiring content writer, like copywriters for the sales page. There are designers and 3D artists helping me out with the new website and some other people helping me with content marketing. So I've been hiring and working with a lot of other people, subcontractors, even though I still run my own business pretty much without full-time employees. But I have been doing a lot of interviews and, some of them have been successful, some of them have been not successful. And also I've had kind of a previous bad experience when hiring people in the past. So I want to share what I've learned along the way and how I do things these days. Basically, a lot of how I'm thinking about stuff these days are influenced by a book that I recently read, which is called Who, the Method, or I think the A Method for Hiring, which is basically about how big companies hiring A players for their companies. Now, even though this book is kind of oriented for people looking to hire maybe CEOs for companies or like high-level executives, I think that even as a freelancer, I can take a lot of things from it, specifically the frameworks about what you need to think about when you're interviewing other people. So I will basically not share the whole book, but just what I took away from it. So one of the most important things to do before you start hiring and talking to other people is to really understand what you need. And the way that you do this is by creating some kind of what they call a scorecard, which basically defines two types of skills that you're looking to get a good match on. So first one are the kind of, let's say, practical skills. So obviously, if you're hiring a designer, he needs to be good at designing. If you're hiring a copywriter, obviously they need to be good at those skills. But the other things are kind of like more, let's say, cultural fit. So for my experience, I know that when I work with other people, the things that are most important to me is that they show up on time, they're not late for meetings, they do what they say they want to do. So I have kind of criteria for behaviors and kind of like traits that I'm looking to see when I'm hiring other people. So when you have this scorecard, it makes the interviewing process much easier because you basically have to ask them some questions and then tick off the boxes when you see that the answers share a story where you can see that they have this skill or you don't have that skill. Now, one thing that I do want to mention specifically about hiring subcontractors is that it's better to interview people way before you need them. So specifically right now, I have a deadline. I want to launch my course in September, so I have to have these people start working immediately. Now, because I'm doing this interview process for a long time, I kind of have like a spreadsheet with people who I already interviewed. So I know them. I know that they've been validated by the interview process. And right now I can just reach out to them, say, hey, we've got a project, let's rock and roll. And it doesn't take a lot of time. For some specific roles, which I didn't interview yet, I have to start doing the interview process right now. An interview process takes a lot of time because you have to find good leads. Then you have to interview them probably multiple times, which we're going to cover in a second. So finding good people takes a lot of time. So ideally, you want to start building your network of people that you're going to be working with way before you actually need to do this. So always look for good people. So I'm a designer. I know that I will always need to work with good photographers, content writers, maybe developers. So I'm trying to create relationships, find good people. And when I see somebody that I think will be a good fit, even if I don't have a project right now, I'm sending them a message, let's get on a call, let's get to know you. And then I'm start asking them some of the questions. So let's talk about what happens in kind of the first call. So basically, the first call is mostly about getting to know who they are, their goals, and how they're working. So I would ask them things like, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you trying to do? What are your goals? And people who are motivated and are great people, what's called A players, usually are very focused and can answer these questions because they have a goal. They're working to achieve something. And hopefully it's going to be a good fit with what you're looking to achieve. But if they're kind of like, I don't know, or I don't have any goals, that might be a sign that they're not like amazing people to work with. Then the second thing I always ask is, if I work with you on this or a similar project, what would the process look like? And I want to see that they have a specific process for working on these type of projects, because a process is what I think, and I say this a lot, is kind of like the difference between amateurs and pros. Pros have a process and they know what's going to happen at each step of the process. And I want to work with pros who can assure me that they have a good process and they're sharing what's going to happen, how long it's going to take, and sometimes, the estimated costs of different types of projects. So this is basically the kind of like the core of the first meeting. And that meeting helps you validate if it's going to be interesting to talk to them in the future, and you might work with them. And a lot of times you might just realize it's not a good fit. And it's a good idea to talk to a lot of people, because only when you talk to multiple people, you start to get kind of the relative, like, oh, this guy was better than that girl, for example, or because when you only interview one person, you might think they're good, they're not good. But when you interview a few of them, suddenly you get kind of the reference to how they work compared with other people, and then you get better perspective. So that's the kind of the goal of the initial call. Then on the second call, it might be something very specific to the project. So you might discuss, what's the project, and basically what you want to know, kind of the metric that you're aiming for, is this person has kind of a 90% chance of reaching the goal that I need to get on this project. This is what you're looking to get. And one thing that you probably want to do is ask them if they have experience in similar projects. And if they don't have experience with similar projects in the past, that kind of reduces the chance that they will, the likelihood that they'll reach the goals, or at least it's not going to be around 90%. And then it's kind of a warning sign. So one thing to look for, and you ask that about past projects, past jobs, is you try to see that they have relevant experience to what you're trying to achieve with this project. Now, one of the most important thing, which is the easiest to skip because we're lazy and it takes a lot of time, is doing reference calls. Now, doing reference calls is basically saying, hey, can I talk to some of your past clients to hear what they say about you? And obviously, you need to be a confident contractor or freelancer to share, to be willing to connect a potential client with your past clients, because if you think they'll say good things. Now, I don't do this to every contractor I work with, only for people that I'm going to be working on big projects, which are very important. I'm going to take the time to set up a call with at least one or two past clients to hear about them. And I'm going to try and ask them, what was the experience like? And even what were their weaknesses? What would you say they would need to improve? Because they're probably going to tell me things that the contractor himself didn't want to say. And you'll be amazed at how many people, on the call, they look amazing or they say amazing things about themselves. Then when you talk to their past clients, things are not as pretty as they would say, even though this person was recommended by the contractor. So the contractor assumed they're going to say good stuff, obviously. But things are not always like that. So this is very, very important. And even though we're lazy and it takes a lot of time and we tend to skip this, this is super, super crucial. With people that I work on smaller term projects, what I would usually do, instead of taking the time to do reference calls, I would just do a pilot. So I would say something like, hey, can we test something really small? I don't mind, because it's going to be just like maybe a few $100s. Let's just do this and see the result. If the results are good, then I'm going to maybe hire you for a bigger project or for an ongoing project. So starting off with some kind of a smaller pilot is a great way to kind of mitigate the risk, see that you like working together and this is a success, and see if you want to keep moving forward. I hope this was useful for you. This is the process I use when I'm hiring subcontractors. Hope this will be useful for you, and I will see you on the next video.